Alright, guys, we can finally talk about the information of DVARAVATI. I still can't say the name. I think it's Varavati Kingdom. Alright. We have read Lex Will comment under Fabrice, him saying he believes Vavarati is King David, but that's a kingdom. So now we have a source from that person who I told you from that Khmer person who's deceased now. I finally found the stuff he was reading. This was published back in 2010. It's Angkor Wat, King Solomon Temple. The love kill theory, conspiracy mystery, archaeology fact, dinosaur revolution, 13 war, key of the lost of the Ark of Covenant. The lost Ark of Covenant conspiracy. Alright, so if you are researching, trying to learn more about this stuff, I'm gonna put this link in the comment, and anybody want to study it, go read, and you can probably find more than this person actually did. But this is, I believe, it's a Cambodian who researched this, a Khmer, because they know more about, the history. But let's go. Chedar Lamar, King of Elam, or Kedar Lamar in Hebrew, mentioned in Genesis 14 as one of the kings of the four corners of earth. We consider the powerful king of the east and a contemporary of Abraham Brahma, whom later saved his brother Lot from the hands of Kai Dori of Yam or Elam. Kai Dorji being his Tibetan name, and Havere his Buddhist tantric name, since the name Vajra literally means thunder or lightning, and Kedor means sun, and what is thought of as ancient Middle Eastern Elamite. Since in ancient times, Kai Dorje invaded and conquered the Middle East, then Kai Dorje of Elam could mean son of lightning or son of thunder mountain. Since Dorje also means thunder or lightning, the absolute reality of nature, then Kai could mean spirit. Therefore, Dalai Lamas and Pachi Lamas could be considered the holders of the Vajra or spirit of Thunder Mountain. Kankajunga or Kanching Zognaga is Thunder Mountain. Oddly enough, known Elamite king bears the Lagamar, the god for which Lahmor is Cheddar Lamor is thought to be named after one reason for that. Lamor could mean of Elam or from Elam. The same Elam that is in the extreme east within the moderate boundary of Nepal, Naphtali, which separates it from Sikkim, and the title for which the Lama order of priest kings may owe their name. Every year at a certain time, all festivals that are held in Nepal, there is in one which Budhanath is included first and foremost. After Budhanath, a fresh coat of gold, the Lamas blow their trumpets. In the New American Standard Version of the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures, Exodus 19:16, quoting, "So it came about on the third day when it was morning, and there were thunder and lightning flashes, and a thick cloud upon the mountain, and a very loud trumpet sound, so that all the people were in camp trembled." Numbers 29:1, quoting, "Now in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall also have a holy convocation. You shall do no laborious work. It will be to you a day for blowing trumpets." Another installment for the script of God Kings, the movie, is this. Our studio is going to create pop that exploits the technical aspect of piloting the flying saucer chariot stupa by giving the audience a focal point within the captain's bridge. This focal point is a visual prop which is a kind of transparent version of the ship itself and strategically placed in the center of the bridge's control room with holographic duplicate of the ship's magnetic drive as it interacts with the Earth's geomagnetic field like a set of Fresnel interference patterns or so-called Newton rings. The purpose of this mechanism is to give the audience a point of reference for the flight capabilities of the vehicle without detracting from drama or dialogue of the actors, and without the need for constantly reinforcing the external visual environment of the saucer chariot. At the same time, a bright colored ring representing the plasma drive's interaction will be placed at a position floating below the lower hull of the ship at almost the diameter of the base of the saucer itself. This is very dramatic to the visual aids of the movie God Kings, Alex, and I hope you like it. So, we can skip this part. I decided to publish some more ideas for the script. There's always room for learning, book of humor. That's something different. So, okay. Osiris equals Israel. Larsa Rasa Asar. Since the first capital of Israel is considered to be Shechem, we'll look that up. Shechem, right? And I have found that the Himalayan nation of Sikkim is really Shechem of the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures. Furthermore, since I have found that Lhasa, Lasha, and Larsa are really the same place, and Lasha is mentioned only in the Bible at Genesis 10:19. Every time that we see Larsa mentioned in Mesopotamian records, we are really seeing Israel. And that during the ancient times, the kingdom of Israel Larsa ruled Sikkim to Siam, Thailand, with various kings choosing their cities of rule more or less according to their families of birth or the geographical evolution of their ruling ancestry. So let's look it up. So this is in China. And we already know Larsa is in the Bible. We gotta look that up. Larsa is in the Bible, Genesis, right? From a book called Babylon by John Utz, Chapter 2, From Sargon to Hammurabi. Subtitled The Larsa Kings, page 58, quoted with my name change inserts with the Amorite Gung Gonum. The fortunes of Israel changed. Notable among his achievements was the annexation from Isin of Egypt, by which Israel gained control of valuable Gulf trade, which had apparently languished since the fall of Egypt. Okay. Which Ishmi Dagon and Dagon of Burma seem to be the same. History. It is not yet certain from my research that the origin of the Kassite kings is either from Tibet or India. The similarity in the names of Kassite kings with those of Indo-European origin has been proposed. However, it is author's opinion that the names can be narrowed more closely as pure Indian with Tibetan and Himalayan historical lineages. From a book by John Oates, Babylon 1979, Thames, Hudson, Ltd., London, Chapter 4, titled Kassites and Chaldeans, subtitled Kara Indesh and Kuragalazu, quoting page 90. Alright. One of the very few hints that Kassites did some of their own religious practice is to be found in a text of time of the last Kiragozu, which mentions the Kassite creator gods Shukwamuna and Shimalia, and whose shrine in Babylon this Kuragalazu was invested with the trappings of the royal office. I believe that this creator god named Shakwama is really Shakyamuni, the Buddha. That's right, a creator god of the Kassite listed in 1345 BC in the Mesopotamian records. Ptah of ancient Egypt was considered a creator god. If we consider the Kassite kings or Indian or Tibetan warlords, with Buddhism as their main only religion, and their presence in Mesopotamia is first recorded in the Sumer at sometime between 1750 BC and 1600 BC, depending upon which date formula that we use. We further consider that Hammurabi is really Abraham of the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures. So Hammurabi is really Abraham. Then this only leaves about 150 years between Abraham Brahma and Buddha Moses. Far too narrow period in history for the biblical events to take place. Since it's almost that Hammurabi is indeed Abraham Brahma, then this must mean the stele of Hammurabi must be either an historical document from a much earlier period, or that at least some of the actual events associated with Mesopotamian records occurred earlier in history. There is a possibility that Kassite rule in Mesopotamia occurred later than previously thought, or the Kassite reign was longer, therefore, and extended to a more recent period. So it would appear that the final date reckoning for the historical compilation of the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures seems to have been altered during some time in modern history to fit in the corrupted ancient historical account, with the fidelity of historical timeline remaining somewhat intact. Since the location of Elam as far as east boundary Nepal and the Mesopotamian record of Elam correspond nicely with the proposed Tibetan proximity of Lhasa and Larsa or Lasha in the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures. And I believe that the Amorites or Amaru Martu came from India. So let's look that up. Okay. And invaded Tibet at some point in ancient history, and combined with what we are left with the Mesopotamian records concerning the names of city-states, there is only one firm historical conclusion that can be drawn, and that is that most of the names, locations of Mesopotamia that fell to the hands of the invaders throughout history were assigned according to the place of countries whose conquerors originated. Much like the king's names of the opposing armies in battle were sometimes addressed according to the origin of the people, or even vice versa. Some exceptions do, however, take precedence, such as the name of the Mesopotamian god Shamash being named after the sons of Jacob, as in the Egyptian equivalent of Shemsur, and like, thus retaining their original Semitic properties, or the names of Mesopotamian places or kings named being mirror inverted right to left, such as the case of Hammurabi, Abraham, or Namu, Amun-Re, or Amun-Ra, Amar Sin Rama, or even the place of Uruk-Kuru. So it would seem that scribal error could account for the mix-up in the order of the names of kings. Even place names of the previous rulers of Sumer, since Hammurabi is not only example for this. Furthermore, this appears to accord mostly with official titles and formal place names, which were probably transcribed from original ethnic source, since the description occur for mountainous country seems to have retained its correct pronunciation. This may accord around the time of the Kassite occupation, or even later, since the place name Uruk may have originally been Kuru. So, we got Uruk in modern day Iraq, and we got Kuru. Okay, so disease, Bible, that might not be it. So let's go back. The actual chances of the more established Mesopotamian lineages attacking the countries of origin for the Indian or Tibetan warlords, while slim in most cases, it obviously occurred. In the case of Naram Sin of Agadi, we have Narasimha, recorded in India as God King, which for many reasons was highly revered. The image of a lion. Alright. Dang, what's going on? They got this AI shit. I just wanna, okay. Bingo. Symbol of a lion. The image of a lion, rendered in many unique fashion on Persian stamp seals, are also found on the island of Java, as well as Tibetan monasteries. And since the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures statues that beginning with the reign of King Jehoiakim, Judah sustained two separate deportations to Babylon at the hands of Nebuchadnezzar of Assyria, and on at least one occasion the occupation of Palestine by King Necho of Egypt during the same period between 600 to 550 BC. Here we go, guys. Here we go. About to start now. The location for the Battle of Kurukshetra between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, as told in the ancient Indian epic of Mahabharata, has been found listed in the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures. 2 Kings 3:25-27 as Kir Hareseth, or Ker of southern Moab. Alright, so let's just look that up right quick to make sure I ain't lying. And they beat down the cities, and on every good piece of land cast every man his stone, and fulfilled it. And they stopped all the wells of water and felled all the good trees, only in Kira Hareseth. Okay. Oh, I exit out, guys. We gotta get it back. Okay. I gotta go scroll all the way down. Or southern Moab, or in Kings 22:40 as Karka, in the district of Hamath, in northwestern India/Edom, and matching the designation of King Kuru in Mahabharata, since historical biblical references list both Ker, or Ker Hareseth, and Karkar as possibly being the same place. Though obviously at different times, if we consider the battles to be different, I would favor the Ahab Shalmaneser battle account for the epoch. Where in the first example, Israel, which is Siam, Judah, which is Cambodia, and Edom, which is India, are all gathered together against the great King Kuru of Moab. And the mention in the Mahabharata of the king of Kunti Boja is really King Jehoshaphat of Judah or Cambodia, where the biblical account states that after the tribes had made a great slaughter against Moab, the king of Moab offered his son up for sacrifice on the wall, and that had a great wrath overtook the tribe of Israel, and then they withdrew to their own country. So we're gonna look up the battle to see if this is actually a real battle, and it is. But boom, Kuru Kshetra War, right? You have the what is it? The Kaurava versus the Pandava, and you can see they have the Pandava kingdom has a sea flag and you know Muslim flag, but where in the first example, Israel, Siam, Judah, Cambodia. That's not the right one. Here it is. In a battle which occurred fairly near before the previous one mentioned above, and on the heels of a battle treaty between King Ahab of Israel and King Ben-Hadad of Syria. An alliance was formed by Ahab with King Ben-Hadad and other neighboring kings to repel the advance of King Shalmaneser of Assyria. In this battle, the main alliance of the king of Israel takes the Pandava designation, while the Assyrian king and allies take the Karava or Kuru designation. The winning title for the battleground of Kurukshetra, or listed in the Old Testament, the Battle of Karkar, the date assigned for the reign of King Shalmaneser of Assyria. During the Battle of Karkar, with Ahab of Israel, is listed as around 850 BC, while the date listed for the Battle of Kurukshetra is listed at about 900 BC. Wow. So he's basically saying this battle of Kurukshetra, right, is basically the Judeans, Edomites, and where is he said? He said the Israelites, Judeans, and Edomites versus the Moabites. And he's saying that the Pandava kingdom is them, and then the Kura, that's what I said, Kura kingdom, the Karava or Kuro kingdom is the Moabites. So let's go next. Previous mention, an overview from the Mahabharata as illustrated in the Khmer record on the southwestern gallery of Angkor Wat shows that after a war broke out in Krishna's tribe, Krishna then went into the forest where he was killed by an arrow from a hunter who had mistaken him for an antelope. The biblical account of the death of Ahab almost mirrors the account given in the previous example, 1 Kings 22:33-34. And when the captains of the chariot saw that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. But a certain man drew his bow at venture and struck the king of Israel between the scale armor and the breastplate. Therefore he said to driver of his chariot, "Turn about, carry me out of the battle, for I am wounded." If we consider the Mesopotamian kings list mentions one Kara-Indesh, king of Karduinesh, and we take this to be very similar with the name of a later sovereign, Kuro, king of Kurukshetra, then our cultural and linguistic example is established. Where in the Indian account, the relationship between Pandavas and the Kauravas leading up to the final battle is apparently covered in great detail than the actual battle itself, and the specifics of the battle have apparently been passed on through oral accounts. If King Solomon and King Suravarman II are actually the same person, and I know that they are, this must mean that the inscriptions of the Great Gallery of Angkor were, at least in this case, added at later date after the battle. Obviously, Angkor Wat was built. This is why combatants are shown in the Great Gallery at Angkor, wearing traditional Khmer military dress along with the driving of chariots, because Judah was actually there in the battle. So he's saying after that battle, right, the final battle of Pandavas and the Kauravas. Pandavas, basically the the Judeans of Cambodia, Israelites of Siam, and the Edomites of India fought against the Moabites, or the Syrians, Kuru, right? He was saying after that battle, King Suravarman II or King Solomon created the Angkor Wat. All right. The northern kingdom of Israel was located in what is now modern Thailand or Siam or Samaria at this historical period and extended northward through Burma, making it larger than Judah. Krishna or Nagpo in Tibetan may be one of the kings of Israel, but which one? Okay. And here's what Lex Will was talking about. He was talking about DVARAVATI being King David in Fabrice's comments, and this might support his point. Since the name Vavarati and Pandava both contain a match in pronunciation with David, and we found that from the Khmer dude's video. This is what he read. Both contain a match in pronunciation with David. And I believe that King UDYADYAVARMAN is the Judean king's title given to King David. Let me read this again. Since the name of Vavarati and Pandava both contain a match in pronunciation with David, I believe that King UDYADYAVARMAN is the Judean king's title given to King David. Let's look this name up. This is a real person in the Angkor Kingdom. So this is alleged. And I think this is the Vavarati script coming from the Brahmin script, which is, Brahmin's Abraham and Shem, right? So this man is allegedly King David. All right. So, somewhat what he's saying. And since there were numerous battles fought by King David and kings of Syria, and also King Saul or Surya and King David had an internal clan feud, this leaves the legend leading up to the Mahabharata as somewhat broad with regard to its historical scope. I have therefore postponed the identification of Lord Krishna in favor of identifying the city of David as Vavarati. All right? He's saying the city of David is Vavarati in the light of inheritance of kings of Israel being mentioned in association with Lord Krishna. The reason for this is that King David did not die in the battle, and modern historical interpretation of Mahabharata on the wall of the Great Gallery of Angkor Wat is viewed consistently with the Indian version that Lord Krishna died in the battle. Therefore, King Saul or Surya could be Lord Krishna or even King David, if we view the subsequent kings of Israel as being associated with Lord Krishna in many of the battles as one of the god kings in this case of war. It may also be the location for the Mahabharata is known as the common battleground throughout the Bible under a different name such as Megiddo, or like where the kings of Israel and Judah as well as Edom, Ammon, and Moab met in the battle with the king of Syria in numerous occasions. From the Moon Travel Handbooks, the Thailand Handbook, Karl Park's 2000 chapter on history, Vavarati Mon period, quoting, most prominent among these groups were the Vavarati, a Buddhist culture associated with the Mon people. Named by Georges Coides, a French art historian who discovered the word Vavarati on coins evacuated near Nakhon Pathom. Vavarati is actually a Sanskrit word denoting the city of Krishna in the Indian opus Mahabharata, or the city of David. Right? So the Vavarati from him is confirmed the city of David. And he's saying that the King UDYADYAVARMAN is the Judean king's title given to King David. Alright. So go to the next one. Psalms and Bhagavad Gita. Finally, if we take major theme for the Mahabharata to actually include, but not be limited to, the dispute between King Pandavid UDYADYAVARMAN and David's son Absalom Bisminsa or Abinmanyu. We're gonna look up if this is a real person. Yep. And Mahabharata Hindu epic, and then I spelled it wrong. Yep, this is a real person too. And yep. Then this may make Krishna the seer recorder, King David, Dayavama, Payana, Vasa. Let's look this up. Yep, that's a real person. Which will make the Psalms of David directly related to the Bhagavad Gita. And the name Mahabharata may somehow be related to the place name Mahanam as listed in the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures. Likewise, the place Rama name in India Edom could be the same place as Rama in the Old Testament, where the Ganges River flows in the northern Palestine of northern India. And this is related to the name of Ramayana, could be where the kings of Siam, Samaria get their name Rama in the city of Krishna, David, Vavarati. So this reader is confirming that the kingdom of Vavarati, which we learned in past videos, is the kingdom or the ancestors of the Khmer and ancient Siamese, is the city of David. Since, or could be the city of David. Since the spiritual Krishna, Vasudeva, is considered the supreme god Vishnu in the Mahabharata, I have found that Vishnu is really Joseph, Horus, or Jeho Vishnu. Then King David could very be Krishna the Recorder. A book with Babylon's People of the Past by W.H.F. Sachs from page 27 quoting. Many events in the first millennium can be accurately fixed. For this we have to thank Assyrian records. The Assyrians dated each year by official who served as Lemu, holder of a certain religious office. Lemu lists were kept sometimes where important events in the year noted alongside. One of these records add information in the month Siwan. The sun was eclipsed. Modern astronomers can calculate that this solar eclipse took place in 763 BC, and from this rest of the series of Lemu entries provides accurate dates back to just before 1100 BC. This is similarity with the Tibetan word Lama or Lahmo for religious leader. It's too tempting to ignore. One of the similarities of kings between Tibetan records and those of Mesopotamia, which predate the previous examples, are Zimri Lim or Mari commentary with Samu El of Larsa, Lhasa, Sangsten Gampu Rim Sin of Larsa, Lhasa Richin Zangpo Rim Sin of Larsa, Lhasa Gangnum of Larsa. Two of the family of the five Buddhas below are Apagmi, the Buddha of internal light, who lives in the western lands, Amitabha Amatina, king of Babylonia, 1684 to 1646 BC. Danyo Drupa, Amag city, Amasakwa, king of Babylonia, 1646 to 1626 BC. Amishade, Amishade, the father of Izer, the head of the tribe of Dan, taking the north position to the tabernacle in the camp of the tribe of Israel. Amahashidi, one of the Buddhas of the first five families, have taken north position in relation to Holy Stupa, the Tibetan name which is Danyo Drupa, Shekemo, Shakaya O, Yotin O. The history of the Tibet has been recorded by many different cultures and subsequently involves many different versions of historical timelines which appear to be different, when in reality they represent the same period or personages. I believe that the following example meets this requirement. I believe that Emperor Ashoka of India, circa 250 BC and 11th century AD Tibetan sage, Atisha, originally from Bengal, are in fact the same historical person. And if this is found to be true, that this would alter all their succeeding historical timelines for Tibetan history. So we're going to ignore all this part, just talking about UFOs. You can read that if you want. I'm going to have the document in the YouTube link. But let's get to the first. Alright, so once upon an ancient time, in the Himalayas, after entering Earth's atmosphere in the interstellar electromagnetic plasma drive spacecraft, Lord Manjushri landed on Swayambhu Hill, and using a high-energy particle beam weapon blew a hole in the surrounding hillside, creating the Chobar River, gorge, and draining Lake Kathmandu, and preparing for the unknown dry land arrival of the interstellar chariot of Lord Yehovah Arcana. Let's look that up. That is a real person called before. Great Son Buddha. Let's go back. This place in Kathmandu is the mountain Horeb of biblical fame, where Moses received the 10 Commandments from God. And the Chobar Gorge is identical with the location for the vision of Ezekiel as he was held captive by the Chaldeans at the river Chobar. So the place Kathmandu. Right? We don't know if this is true. We're just reading what this person has said. But you're saying this is the city of, he's saying this is, where he received the 10 Commandments. Right? He's saying that on that mountain, this is where Moses received the 10 Commandments, allegedly, right? So, and then he said the Chobar Gorge is where Ezekiel was held captive, which is in Nepal. Alright. If any place on the planet could be considered the original location of the Garden of Eden on Earth, it would probably be somewhere in or near the Kathmandu Valley. So let's go look at that. He's saying this is where the Garden. Now everybody say they place a Garden of Eden. He's saying it's in Nepal. But let's go back. For it is the place that our Lord set up his base of operations, first because of its fortified location, and second in order that cherubim antenna towers be located at the greatest broadcasting ability, obviously to communicate with another base of operation and possibly their home planet, as well as reaching the Ark of Covenant to speak from mercy seat to Aaron and the people of Israel. Is it the radio cherubim antenna towers of these stupas for which design central prayings of Angkor Wat Temple of King Saravarman II in Cambodia is by its base. The Angkor Wat Temple is actually the same identical structure described in the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures as the house that King Solomon built. So he believes King Saravarman II and the Angkor Wat Temple is King Solomon's temple. King Solomon is King Saravarman II. And Cambodia is ancient Judah, which means that the Khmer Empire at its zenith power was actually around 1000 BC. It's not really 1000 BC. Instead of 12,000 AD, as we've been led to believe. At some point in history, the original antenna tower atop the Badna Stupa was torn down, probably an invading military force, and then systematically rebuilt in the most cubic form that we see today. This could have been occurred during the reign of Hammurabi, when he invaded Larsa, Rasa, Lasha, Lhasa in Tibet, or even as early as an invasion by Chedorlaomer mentioned in the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures. While an exact date for this has not yet been found, a rough historical timeline may be reckoned from appearance of the cubic form other stupas of the Kathmandu Valley, as well as designs or forms which have been exported to other areas or countries. The presence of lotus panels incorporated into design of Angkor Wat or King Solomon's Temple's tower frames indicate that the original form for the circular design was chosen or at least ultimately considered. However, the Khmer Cambodian Juda design also incorporates elements of cubic model as well. This could indicate that a regard for sacred pity incorporated into the Khmer design for fear of not adhering to holy model. Furthermore, the roof finials that previously adorned the tops of the chambers or halls of Angkor Wat as surrounding incorporated in the temple proper represented the klystron cherubim, which lined the top of the Ark of the Covenant, were therefore the counterpart to the broadcasting cherubim antenna of the chariot stupas of the Kathmandu Valley. Joseph Campbell realized that there were symbolic similarities between the images of Jed Pillar, which is eyes of Horus in Egypt, and the stupa towers with their all-seeing eyes of the Kathmandu Valley, when he did not realize these were great Egyptian Buddhist and Himalayan religious representations of the antenna cherubim of the God of Israel. Since the Djed pillar in ancient Egypt is considered to be the backbone of Osiris, this could now be translated as backbone of Israel, and the eyes of Horus may now be correctly translated as the eyes of Buddha or Buddha Moses as descendant of Horus, that is, of Joseph of the tribe of Osiris or Israel. In the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures, Joseph is the son of Jacob or Israel. In ancient Egyptian legend, Horus is the son of Osiris. The similarity in the Egyptian names of Osiris and Karnak with those of the Indian places names Orissa, Karnak, along with the African-style hut design for some of the buildings in East India, indicating that ancient times Israel and Egypt may have shared that Indian maritime port. Most ancient Egyptian wall reliefs and illustration of pharaohs well as gods seem to conform to a pattern, and that pattern seemed clearly in profile as representation of the human body in the constellation of Orion, with the belt of Orion represented by the top of the kilt and the remaining stars from the shoulders down to the bottom triangular portion of the kilt, as well as the sword of Orion, being covered by the double plumed Egyptian headdress and usually accompanied by the two-headed cobra serpents as the cloth fold draped downward. This royal regalia of plumed headdress framed in the center of Orion's sword is really a symbolic representation of stupa cherubim antenna towers of the Kathmandu Valley, our Lord's chariots.